Today, I had the pleasure of sitting down with writer, director, producer, psychologist, and professor, Pete Alcide. Pete took his passion for the screen and combined it with his love for people to create two projects, Lupeo, out on Amazon Prime, and his new in-the-works film, Haylee. I got to know more about Pete and his background with helping those with mental illness. Please be advised we do talk about current event issues like veteran PTSD, homelessness, mental health, and firearms, but it is worth listening to. Now let's get to business. Hello everyone, I am Tatiana Ryan and I am here with Pete Alcide on the Businessy podcast, and we are going to go over Pete's amazing projects because you have so many of them.
Yeah.
So welcome, Pete. Right now, I met you because you are working on your newest project called Haylee. What can you tell us about Haylee?
Okay. Haylee is a passion project of mine that not only I wrote a little while ago, but I didn't want to just make it, without any substantial people behind it, like people who can actually help it succeed. So I've done other projects in between and try to get things started. So Haylee is based on a true story about a young woman dealing with mental health issues. And as she tried to get her life back, after going through so much, by the way, just from the time she was growing up until she became in her mid 20s, she was dealing quite a bit. So in and out of hospital, in and out of foster homes. And, by the time she realized, okay, I have to put my life back together, she was on a basic plan, try to make it work away from other people, except for a couple of friends. She then now meets somebody, and at the time where she wants to invite romance in her life, but things can get complicated around them because balancing a social life and balancing your life when you have so much trouble in the back burner can be a little complicated for anyone. So while she was trying to balance that, she now have to face a whole lot of other issues that has to do with how to deal with people, herself, and everybody else around her. So it's an interesting story, not only because I knew the person who went through that personally, but the fact that so many people have gone through similar situations, and especially with this generation when we have so much going on and so many mental health issues that are literally take over, some even result to suicide. I think this story is a good story for people to see how you can succeed and how, when you put yourself first and try to allow life to, try to live life instead of allowing life to really take over, it can be rewarding. And, there are some ups and downs you will deal with. That's just, that's just the price of living, but having so much in your plate doesn't mean that your life is over. It's just a matter of how do I balance it? How do I make it work for me and, and my loved ones? So that's the main thing of the story. I'm hoping a lot of people really come out to, check it out because it will help break some stigma, as far as getting help and, so that a lot of people want to hide it. A lot of people want to hold it to themselves until it's too late. So I'm hoping, watching this movie will sort of give some people some reassurance that, there are other people out there who cares and would like to help if they simply ask.
Yes. You just brought that point up about balance. Now, you are not only, you're a writer, you're a director, you're a producer, and you're also a psychologist, or you worked in the medical field until 2006. And you also have multiple projects out. Another movie you have, Lupeo, is a multi-award winner. Like, how did you get started with this driving catalyst to get that movie made, not only, but also submit it to all of the festivals that it was submitted to win all of the awards it won?
Well, this movie was made in 2015. It was shortly after the earthquake that took place in Haiti. And the thing is, because I have family members who I watched dealing with the situation about Lupeo. For those who don't know, Lupeo is about the earthquake and how a family dealt with it personally. other than what we see on the news. Because people watch the news, they see what happens to the country, but a lot of people are not realizing the psychological issue that some family had to go through, and many are still dealing with. So watching an actual family going through all that, I wanted to make a movie that sort of give you the intake from inside the house as opposed to what's happening in Haiti. So I wrote the movie and filmed it with literally my life savings and didn't know how it was going to come out. It's just I wanted it to come out. So after I finished it, of course, now I had to rebuild my savings again. But then, because I didn't have enough money to just get it advertised and get it out, the only people who saw it were the actors. Nobody else really came to the small opening I was trying to do. But after that, I still didn't stop, but I kept advertising for it. I posted a trailer in different places, and people were just, some people were, they liked the premise, but they wanted to see it. I couldn't just email it to everybody. So I'm like, I'm working on it. So that was and then, and of course, I didn't want to send it to too many festivals right there and then, because a lot of distribution company feel like, okay, too many people have seen it. It will have no merit when they want to show it. So then they won't make any money. So I basically kept it to myself. People were, different companies were asking to buy it. So which means actors and directors would not get any credit. And for most of the actors that were in it, they were just beginning their career and they want the credit. That's really what they want. It's not that how much they would get paid, but the credit, because they need something in their resume to say, I was in this movie, I did this movie, and I would like credit for it. That would basically open more doors for them. So eventually, this distribution company called me and said, okay, I can help you sell this movie. We just need to make a few arrangements. So we sit down, and it looked like it would work for both parties. So we made a deal. Of course, they went out and sold it to a different, they went out and, approached a few streaming services, and a few of them picked it up, but they just had different dates that they would release it. Amazon was the first one to release it in just this past year in 2022 in March. So this March, just make it a year that since it's been out, and it's been doing fairly well. So, I'm just happy that, they like the story enough and they felt like they can sell it, and they did. Soon enough, it should be out on Peacock. So that's the plan, to really get it out there and let people see that story and how resilient a single family, and how keeping the faith and hoping for the best does pay off sometimes. So both on my side and the actors who were very dedicated for the movie, and some of them, it's been that long because I have some actors who were kids. If you see the movie, some of them were kids. When you see them today, when we're trying to interview, they're grown kids. Some of them are in college now, when some of them were just in middle school and high school at the time of the filming. So it's just one of those things. We just keep the faith and keep pushing, and then eventually it came through. So
that's awesome to hear.
Yeah, thanks. And with Haiti, I'm just trying to capitalize on that, just putting something else out there, just showing, because I'm very passionate about true stories and it's true events that takes place. And I feel like I personally connect with a lot of stories. Yeah, I do like Marvel, but a good true story, my favorite movie is The Beautiful Mind, because it was a true event, something that really happened. And there's a few of them out there too I enjoy, both as a psychologist and as an individual who's dealt with people with mental health. Beautiful Mind fairly presented very well. I have both the book, the movie, and the DVD when there were DVDs back then. And so it's just one of those things. When I'm passionate about something, I try to capitalize on it as much as possible.
And it sounds very positive. You like positive stories also.
Yes. Positive stories that would show people that there's something behind everything. One of my favorite short films, actually won a few awards as well, that's now on YouTube, is it's called Indemnification Claimed. It's basically a story about Mary Magdalene that, is from the Bible. How did she get like this? Because everybody wants to judge everyone from the last thing that happened. But what happened to that person? Would you look at that person differently if you knew how they fell into this path in the first place?
Well, there were probably That's an interesting story that you bring that up, because the times had changed also. And of course there's different stories as to what she really was.
Exactly.
It might have been jealousy as to what, the labels that have been put on her.
Mhm.
So it's very, very, very interesting you brought that up.
Yeah, it's an interesting short story. I mean, again, the Bible doesn't tell you the story, but that's just my perspective. Given that I've dealt with people who've been in different walk of life, things that they've dealt with and they faced, how could she have possibly fall in that position? I just created one and then helped the audience understand she's just an individual that may have had the wrong guidance, and then boom, there she is.
Right. Now, Lupeo and Haylee are not your only projects. You've had some mini series, you've had other projects you've worked on. Tell us about those also.
Yes. So I have a few, and the one I was trying to remember before we started was Voodoo. I have a short film. Indemnification Claim is a short film that I made, won a few awards, a few film festivals, and came out on top. Especially one of my favorites, the latest one they came out with was New York Film Festival. Really appreciated that one. And another one called Subject to Retaliation, which is now available on Vudu and YouTube, so people can watch those, and they're free. If you have Vudu, you can watch it free, of course, and if you have YouTube, you can watch it for free as well. So so yeah, those are two that I remember. These are just short films. I also have some mini series and some episodic series that are on YouTube. If you check my page at Official PA Films, you'll see all some of the stuff that I've done before, including things that I'm working on and things like that. So I try to keep myself busy and in between projects, and prepare myself, and educate myself a little more, so to make sure my next project is bigger than the last.
Wow, and you've come through with so many different projects in this new flourishing era of streaming that you're taking on distribution completely differently than most projects were done, maybe not even 5 years ago.
That's true. That's true. And the thing is, it's different because a lot of people can actually stream things by themselves, but also some of the backing you need in order for it to be successful can be a little complicated. So it's, working with, like, I've been trying to reach Netflix for the longest, and I have not heard anything back. But some people say you need an agent, you need this, you need that, and it's not easy to find an agent for directors. It's not easy. It's easier to find it for an actor. So it's just one of those things. You're battling several fronts, trying to figure out how to get there. But while you're working on it, you're also trying to see what can you do to make sure that your voice is heard one way or another. Or also making your own path, because it's hard to say, okay, I'm gonna sit here and wait for it to happen. It doesn't work. You have to get legwork done. You have to push. You have to hustle. You have to do all that stuff in order to, eventually somebody will reach back. And that's what happened with Lupe. I can't, I'm hoping the same thing happens with Haylee. Right now, I've pushed Haylee so many times, in order to make sure that the funds are correct. Everything is in place for it. When I started, it finishes and it goes where it needs to go in order for the public to really enjoy it.
And that's, like you said, with Lupeo, you dumped your entire life savings into it to get it made.
Yes. It was a good idea and a mistake at the same time. It was a good idea because I
succeeded with it.
It succeeded and it worked, but in between that, it was a little tough, from everything you got, and trying to have other people who depends on you. It was a little tough to then see that happen. That's why right now for Haylee, I'm trying to take a different approach. I'm putting some in it, but also I'm trying to also do fundraising. I have IndieGOGO account that I'm trying to get out there for people to really just read the premise, see a couple of videos we've taken, a couple of shots that we've added to it, just so that they can see that this story is worth telling, and hopefully we get some help.
Yeah. We'll get to that at the end as to where people can find all of the information, not only about the movie itself or about your other projects or where they can stream everything, but where they can also visit you and donate funds to get everything done. Now, as we said, you worked in the field of psychology up until 2006, where you took a total turn and made a decision to get out of the field and take on a whole new career. What made you make that completely different change?
Well, simple. Well, the simple answer is passion. But at the same time, being raised in a family where you were expected to be a doctor, a lawyer, and all these other stuff, you sort of feel like, okay, yeah, I have to go through a certain path in order to satisfy my family, not necessarily looking at the thing you're passionate about. I was in love with making films and being in films since I was, I'd say, maybe 10 years old. And that's the earliest I could think of. Probably before that, but the second they put me on stage to play King Solomon, one of those Bible stories in church, I just couldn't shake it. And that's because they were doing it for children. They went through, they were trying to do the basic things. But when they said I was the king, but there was no crown, I went home and made my own crown. Okay, when they said I needed this, I needed that, I just went and did all those things just to make sure that I brought the character the way it's supposed to be told in my perspective. So I went through those things and realized, okay, I didn't want to stop there. Of course, I was in different drama groups with friends and different, just to try to tell a story in the art way, but you couldn't just disregard what your parents have told you. So I went to school, became a psychologist, working. Not to say I didn't want to help people. I enjoy it, but that wasn't really my main passion. My main passion was always in the art field, of making films or doing play or things like this. So in 2006, I said, okay, you know what? I have to make a decision. I can either keep going doing this, and then just looking away or looking from outside in, instead of just jump in it. So I went and took a few courses, get my education right in that field, so I know what it's about. And of course, one of my teachers said, it's not about some of the books you read. It's not about some of those classes you take. It's all about really start. So I got myself a camera and I started filming little things. Here, one thing led to another, and I just started making bigger and bigger projects as we go. And the thing is, passion. If that's what you're really passionate about, it might seem impossible for everybody around you, but you'll find a way if that's what you want to do. I didn't know it was going to get this far. I didn't know how it was going to get there. I just went with what I had and then see what I can come up with. And if I can tell the story in my way, I'll do it.
Well, you brought up that it's not that you wanted to help somebody, but maybe you're helping more people by doing it this way instead of individually, one at a time, as a psychologist.
Yes, and honestly, a lot of people have told me that, because if I went straight to filming a lot of the stories, especially true stories, I would probably need to do more research about it if I wanted to tell like a mental health story, because maybe I wouldn't have understood it as much as I did being in the field, studying all this, and I have a PhD in psychology. So I sort of have mastered a part of it that allows me to understand the patient and help the patient. Now, when I am telling the story, I can talk on both perspectives, as the patient from what they tell me and how they express their feeling, how they really deal with some of the situation, and the psychologist as a therapist, how we take that information and how we help the other person take differently and try to help them with what they need, as opposed to me trying to get advisors to really jump on it. Of course, if I'm doing a major production, I would still get some psychologists on set, because we all have had different experiences. But overall, it sort of helps me telling a story like this, because not only I knew the person, we worked together for a while, and we sort of, had this connection that allow us to understand each other in a way where telling this story this way is on both perspectives, both the patient's perspective and the psychologist and the people around and people outside looking in to see what this is all about. And hopefully
that. Well, I think we're seeing more and more of what Haylee's story is in the media aspect also, with a lot of people not figuring out their identity or maybe we're seeing a lot of outbursts, I guess now. I guess I would put it that way, gently, that people are not being able to handle their feelings. How do you think that maybe this might help that, as I had gone into before, saying, like taking each person at a time? Yeah, it's great as a psychologist. But now that we're so visually connected as a society, that maybe this might help for that one person say, hey, I'm not going to act out the way I might usually.
Yeah, well, it will help both the person who's going through it and the person who isn't. So let's start with the person who's going through it. Okay, yeah. So at least this person would understand, just because I scream like this doesn't mean that I mean anybody any harm.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I mean? Because a lot of things that have been blamed on the person with mental health isn't really the correct thing. First of all, a lot of them are not dangerous like that. Mm-hmm. It really depends on what's happening, but a lot of them are not that dangerous as the media has, express it to be. Some of them are more danger to themselves as opposed to other people around them. So, it's good that the audience would see that, and also the person who is not dealing with the same thing would at least see, okay, yeah, certain things the person does, they might not be able to help, and also the way you respond to them makes a huge difference. Mm-hmm. Patients connect with the therapist because the therapists know how to really talk to them and not make them feel bad or put them down about an outburst or something like this. Let's say for someone with Tourette's. I remember reading a story about this little girl with Tourette's syndrome, and she had no intention of screaming things, but she couldn't help it.
Right.
But at the same time, other people who are not realizing what's happening, they're just mumbling under their breath, this and that, both adult and children and other children, because they don't understand what's happening. So if you tell a story about Tourette's, they're like, oh, I'm so sorry I behaved that way, because obviously that little girl couldn't really, she's dealing with that problem already, and now you compounding on that by criticizing her, trying to make her feel bad about something that she can't control. So, so when both sides see it, yes, the patient would probably learn to control themselves, but at the same time, if something does happen that is not under their control because of a symptom, they should not be penalized for it just because, just because they're sick.
Right. Now, you had brought up in the biography about the movie Haylee itself, she had some issues with medications. Mm-hmm. And that's I know my mom was on mental health medications, and I just lost her almost 2 years ago in July. But one of her side effects was it destroyed her kidneys. Mm-hmm. And a lot of these medications that people get put on, it ends up, hurting them in another way. Now, how do you delve into that in the movie?
Well, the thing is, in this movie itself, Haylee, because she was a young lady, she grew up in a society where she wanted, although she was being pushed by a lot of things, I remember the way they hurt her and all that stuff, she was always trying to be informed about certain things. So, you'll see in the movie, even as a little girl, certain things when they tell her, she's like, no, I read about this. This is how that works. Same thing as an adult. Yes, they would give her medication, and some of them, when she sees certain side effects, she would try not to get them. So it makes the therapist work a little more to go find another one with less side effect or something, because the generation which she grew up in, and partly because of her resilience and her pushback about everything that tries to hurt her, and her defense mechanism, it sort of helps her to push back, even if it's something that's helping her. She rather lose control over losing her own health. Mm-hmm. So as she deals with both part of the coin, she's sort of, okay, yeah, give me this, and if it doesn't make her feel, there's a point in her life, in the person's life, they changed her medication after she kept pushing back. That medication made her feel like a zombie. She just wasn't fun anymore. But that medication, although it wasn't destroying her physical health, her mood changed completely because she was such a delight to be around. But now it made her feel differently. So they had to then change it again. So there are a lot of things that falls into this category. especially when it comes to medication, some people can't completely get off of it, but other people sort of need that balance. Or, even if they have to do a certain counter medication to help with these side effects, or something to help, or other, other natural remedies to help with some of the physical side effects that are hurting the body. There are different ways to deal with it. It really based on the patient and the therapist, and see how they can manage that. But in the movie itself, Haylee, because she's such a pushy little girl, pushy young lady, and pushy adult, she sort of tried to get certain things to work in her favor, even if, at the expense, at the risk of losing control on both sides of, both her physical and her mental.
Well, this reminds me a lot of the Matthew McConaughey movie Dallas Buyers Club, where he had to be pushy about his own, it was a completely different subject, but it's, finding different remedies, as you just said. If one pharmaceutical isn't working, maybe there's a natural way to do it.
Exactly. There's always another way. Sometimes it might take longer. It's just being open to figure out which one works. Which one would work better, and which one would help the symptoms, and how. Because sometimes you might take the one they give you at the pharmaceutical, but you also working with the natural one, to help it take over. I never tell a patient or someone to stop their medication, but I always tell them explore and read and check to see what else is out there. That's one of the main reasons I don't like to do medication prescriptions, because first of all, a lot of patients overdose on medication so many times, especially some of the controlled medications. So I try to stay away from that as much as possible. And if there's a way to manage or to reduce some medications and that won't hurt the person, I always recommend that to the prescribed physician, the physician who prescribes the medication, just to make sure that this patient is not losing control of themselves, but also still have their full faculty. Because there's so much out there, we don't really, it's hard to say that we know everything, but there's always so much to learn and know how to, and find out how we can help our patient, instead of allowing them to just take the thing that's just going to put more money in our pockets.
Wow, that's absolutely amazing that you're bringing so much perspective from one industry that you were in to now the film industry, and opening up a lot of understanding and connecting people on both sides. Like you just said, with the people that may not understand why this person is acting out, now may be able to just slow down and say, okay, well, why is this happening? Instead of going off and saying, oh, you're doing this.
Exactly. And I always look, I think there's a good reason why I guess I was drawn towards that field, because sympathy for other people when they're going through something I naturally have, regardless who they are and what they are. One of my favorite friend, and I don't was a best friend, but a favorite friend, was a homeless guy. As I drive to work every morning, I saw him sitting down, and one day we stopped and talked and found out so much about him. And given that my older brother was in the military, and he was a Vietnam vet, and he was living on the street. So, and to be honest, one of the reasons I got my PhD in forensic psychology is because I could help some of the vets who were dealing through that, while my brother was in the military and he was away in Iraq. A lot of these guys who came from Vietnam were just on the street and not getting some of the help, because their faculty is not there fully, and they become a victim of just being serving their country. So now they have to deal with all these other things that on the street, and people just look down on them, when in reality a lot of these people could have get some help if only one person cared. So that guy, I liked him, and every now and then we would come by. I would come by. I would share my lunch with him. I would bring him food wherever. So we sort of had an understanding, until one day I just didn't see him anymore. When I asked some of the other guys that he was hanging out with, they said he didn't make it through the night, because it was just one of those nights the shelters were full and it was too cold outside. He just he was older and he was very weak, and he didn't make it. But I felt like I lost a friend at the time, because we talked like literally every other day. And I was going to work, I saw him there, and we chat for at least a minute. And these are some of the things, like he was very very adamant about not getting help, because even if I could see it, you don't want to accuse the person of something that you feel like they need, especially an older man from the 50s, from the 50s, who went to Vietnam and did all these things. Like he was much older, but anyway, he had that stigma that he's not crazy. Yeah, we're not saying you're crazy. I'm just saying, talking to somebody, but he just wasn't having it. All he would do is just talk to me. So we just did that, but if he got the help that he really needed, maybe he wouldn't end up on the street, or be there that night where it was way super cold, and he didn't make it through the night. But
how do you, as your background pertains to everything, how do you feel that we should be tackling some of these major issues of like homelessness, of mental, people not being able to afford the mental help they need?
Yeah, well, I don't want to get into politics because I don't really care for politics that much, but I feel like the government can do more. That and the government hasn't really. I really see no need for a veteran, especially some of these who are dealing with PTSD and all that, and paranoia. I don't see why they should end up on the street, because a lot of these people, especially back then, were not getting paid money to be in the military. They just went because they were drafted, or they just felt the need to serve their country. And now those people came back and they're dealing with so much. One of the reasons, when I finally made my decision to do my PhD in forensic, to specialize in forensic psychology, because of another Vietnam vet where I was working, held up social services with a shotgun because he thought his wife was giving away his children and was going to leave him, when in reality he was never married and has no kids. It was just in his mind, something that he was dealing with, struggling with, the dream that of having a kid since when he was in the war zone. Came back, he wasn't fully himself, never really got a hold of it. And when he finally got to a facility, he was independently living. He missed medication for a couple of days and he just went down. And then just like that, they first, instead of helping him, they arrested him. He spent a few days in prison, in jail, when he needed help. So I had to figure out, how can I help some of these things? And that's where I got my topic for PhD. Because people lose balance of their faculty sometimes, and we don't look to see, okay, why would someone do this? Someone with this type of skill, this type of ability, this type of intelligence, for them to do this. Let's figure out what it is. Let's talk to them. Let's try to see what's behind all of it before we say, okay, yes, you definitely have to go to prison and pay for. I mean, some people who hurt people definitely need to pay for what they've done. But if you realize that person needs more help than they need, to be castrated, give them both. Because, it's not to say this person shouldn't serve in jail, but at the same time, if you're helping them, maybe they'll survive jail and come out a better person. But I think
can I ask? Okay, I'm sorry, finish.
I was going to say, I think the government is lacking in helping a lot of these people, especially the veterans in that area.
Now, we've seen a lot of issues where I said about lashing out, with a lot of these people grabbing guns and doing it, as you had just said. How do you think we can start remedying that, where it's, is it just their pain within that they feel that they need to put on somebody else?
Well, sometimes it's paranoia. And now, when he held up, he never shot anyone. The gun wasn't even loaded. The thing is still an assault, of course. He was a soldier, of course. He knows how to use a gun. He had guns. So that's a little different. If the person comes, you test the person, and you realize, okay, that person he has way too many guns for someone who's going through something, some mental health issues, you probably should reduce an amount of guns that they can own.
Right.
But back then, if you military, I guess it's okay to have it. But anyway, a lot of them just had it. And also some people, you can't be 21. And again, I don't want to get policy, but the government should put some regulation on it. I know it's a whole lot, about the rights to own guns,
Right.
but there's some type of guns, not everybody needs to have it. Even somebody with the right faculty that, quote unquote, not crazy, should not have, period. But yet we allow them to have it, and then we cry. I was in Connecticut when Sandy Hook happened.
Mm-hmm.
And it like I can tell you, I vividly heard some of the shots because I didn't live too far. So it's just unbelievable some of the steps that the government is taking towards helping the population. But I feel like this is something that we're going to be talking about forever. So it's just one of those things. We complain about it, we cry about it, and we say we're going to do something about it, and then not much. I don't want to sound pessimistic, but it's just reality that we've experienced over and over every time, something like this happens.
Mm-hmm. No, I think you're going to help a lot of people with the movies that you make. And I think that that's something that we do need to start shedding light on, is the mental health issue. And maybe more, because it seems like I grew up in the 90s and, none of this stuff ever really seemed to happen until boom, one day. And then it just escalated from there as more of the media got a hold of it and more people got it planted in their heads to do it. So maybe once we start tackling this and media wise, putting a light on it and saying, hey, it's okay to say I'm not having a good day and I need to talk to somebody, because it was very much stigmatized.
Mm-hmm. I grew up in the 80s for the most part. And the thing is, some of it was happening. It's just, we didn't have phones that could record. We didn't have all these news outlets were chasing other stories. So a lot of them didn't make it to the news, as opposed to lately now the news, CNN is forced to run after it because two other guys recorded it on their phone and they just posted it on social media. So they have to break the news. So they would rather just let me buy it from you and I'll put it online, give you the credit. And, so we'll be able to break it first. So now a lot of the news stations are pushing for that more or less, as opposed to, to the way it was before the phone, pre-phones being able to record. But my hope is really to allow people to feel, okay, yes, we all have different stuff we're dealing with. Some of us, it might be a little higher. Some of us, it might be because of our past experiences that put us in a situation. But it doesn't mean that we can't say, look, man, I'm not feeling well today, or I don't feel like talking, or there's something going on that I don't understand. How can I get some help for it, instead of allowing that thing to take over and then things get bad, because we don't know how bad it can get until it gets there.
Right. What's the movie with Bradley Cooper? And it was filmed right here in Philadelphia, and I should know.
The one with Lady Gaga, right?
No, with Jennifer Lawrence and Bradley Cooper. Hold on.
Wow. I can't believe that. I know exactly which one you're talking.
And yeah, they were both on, they had their mental health issues and things like that. And they got into dancing together. And I
watched that movie too. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, how do you feel with something like that turned out? And obviously you just said Haylee is, thank goodness, a very bright-sided story in the end. How can we not attack someone, not make fun of someone to the point, but help them understand, like that story, where there's a lot of jokes about it, but it's a very good humor story.
Yeah, of course. And the thing is and that's part of it. Sometimes we don't know how to tell a joke about someone. I remember this comedian said he tells jokes about everyone. And it's not because he's looking down at them. It's not because he hates them. It's because everybody deserves to feel that they're part of the story. So if you want to tell a story and all the story is about making fun as opposed to for everybody to enjoy, then the person will feel like they're outcasted. And a lot of people who ended up, in the place where they have to feel like they hurt somebody, is because they felt like they were pushed out all the time, even when it didn't need to happen. Mm-hmm. I know kids are cruel and kids are always gonna make kids feel bad, but if parents make it their priority to help kids understand other kids, we'll have less of that issue in the next generation, hopefully. Mm-hmm. Because the thing is, when you make a kid feel out like an outcast, and that kid now feel like they have nobody. Mm-hmm. If they feel like they're lonely all the time, anger builds up and resentment builds up. And, it's not even just mental health anymore. It's more like human. We all feel like that if we feel like we're being pushed, especially by people we like. Mm-hmm. So if I like this guy and he's my friend, I think he's my friend, and all of a sudden he's like, no, you're a weirdo, I don't want to talk to you. Yeah, that's going to upset me. Now, whether or not I'm going to behave that way, it's to be, that's to be, determined later on, because the thing is, so much happens in our life every day. Sometimes we just need. I remember I was a professor for a little while. And as a professor, I made it my business to say hi to most students that walk down the hall. But there's this one kid, he walks by all the time and he never says anything. But all of a sudden, I'm like, how are you doing? And then he's like, actually, and I turn around and to listen, because he actually wanted to say, so we had a little chat for maybe 5 minutes in between class. And then he left after that. And 2 days later, he found him, because he wasn't my student. He was just one of the students. He came to my office and say, thanks, Dr. Pete, because he was ready to kill himself that day. But because I stood there and listened, like, okay, maybe not everybody's the same. This guy probably tried to talk to several people to say what's wrong, or just to say how bad his day is. But everybody just used the how you doing and then walk away. How you doing? Walk away. Hey, what's up? Walk away, instead of actually listening. So if we don't mean what's up, you're not ready to listen, just say hi and keep going. Because when you ask somebody, sometimes it compels the person to want to tell someone. And we just disappear, and that person just keep that thing bottles up, and then that usually end up fatal for the person. So wow. It's interesting how some small things can actually help a person. So,
yeah. And the name of that movie is Silver Linings Playbook.
Silver Linings Playbook, yes.
It was such a good movie. Dr. Pete, this has been absolutely amazing, talking not only about your days as a doctor, but also as a filmmaker, as a writer, as a creator, as someone who wants to help so many people out there and is completely on the right path. Where can everybody find you on social media?
Well, I am just about all of them except for TikTok so far.
Okay.
So I am on Instagram, Facebook, and at official PA Films. That's my handle name, and I have them on all of them. And on YouTube, it's the same thing, at official PA Films. And you'll find me. I post a lot of things, both about mental health, both about encouraging things, and about films that I'm working on, projects that I have going on. And one of the favorite clip that I actually post just recently is the Me, Myself, and Irene with Jim Carrey. When his illness was, it's a complicated thing, but most people won't even won't talk about it. But he was so nonchalant about talking about it. And when he talked about it, it came out very funny, like we were talking about, but at the same time serious. Because he's like, oh, it's nothing. And then when he verbalized it, you're like, that sounds a little complicated. But to him, it's nothing. As long as he stayed on his medication, he won't feel funny. But it was interesting. But I feel like, if you do follow me on these, you'll see a lot of things that, at least if it's not uplifting, it's something that with some information that might be about future project. And and if anybody has any question about anything, just please reach out. I have no problem responding and talking to anybody who wants to talk about something positive.
That is amazing. And I will include all of your information on all of my platforms also. So especially with the last thing that you said, if somebody just feels like they want to talk, if they need the help, then they can come to you and you can direct them where they need to go.
Definitely. I have people I have sessions with from time to time, and we just have it via Zoom or anything like that, just to chat and get them on a path that would help. If it's something that I don't either don't have enough time to help with, or don't have the expertise to do, I will direct them to somebody, because I have other friends in the field. I have a few friends that I've made both in New York, Atlanta, Georgia, like everywhere I've been travel or anything like that. I've made some friends that can help in any capacity that I can't. So I feel like the help is there if you reach out for it. You ask, I'll make some phone calls and try to see if I can. People have called me for things that I have no idea about, but I can be resourceful. So I'll try my best to help out.
Oh my goodness. You are a man of all trades here. This is amazing. And I'm so glad I got a hold of you and we were able to sit here at this time and talk about Haylee and Lupeo and all of your projects, which sound so great. And I wish you the best of luck in everything. And I hope you'll come back on because Haylee's still in the works right now, correct?
Yes, it's in development right now, and we're hoping to film this coming summer. So we've casted, and it's a great cast so far, very talented and dedicated, and they're ready to tell the story. It's just a matter of getting the funding proper in the right the way that we need it in order to make sure that everybody's, because we have people traveling from all over the place to come and be part of the story. Because at first I wanted to be local, but you open it to whoever is open to it, and so many people are so excited about it. And I'm hoping not only their dedication shows in their work, but also the audience definitely appreciates it, because they'll do their best.
Now, did you say you have an IndieGOGO for?
Yes, I do have an IndieGOGO. Basically, if you go to IndieGOGO and you type Haylee, Haylee, I can also send you the link. So
Okay.
yeah, that link basically, it will take you to the page. It will give you all the information about the movie, information about me and what I've done in the past, things that will allow you to see, okay, yeah, this project is in the works and it's getting ready to film this coming summer. We're still working on the final dates to film, but hopefully it comes out sometime next year. But we're also working on the distribution and where it's gonna go. I mean, we do have that distribution company, but we're trying to open up to more to see what else we can get. The more people that can see it, the better.
Yes. Well, I'm so glad that I had you on, and hopefully this opens up to my audience also, and they come visit your site and let's get this made and let's get it distributed everywhere. And it's so exciting to actually sit and talk with you this entire time. Thank you so much for your time. I greatly appreciate it. And I hope you'll come back on.
I definitely will. Just let me know when. I'm definitely, I always make the time, and I do appreciate you having me on there to talk about this. I'm always open to talk about these projects because they mean so much to me. So when I hear someone else who wants to listen about that, I'm definitely, I can talk about it all day. But I know we don't have all that time, but I guess, I can always come back whenever you want me to. And, you always have the time for me.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Pete. I am Tatiana Ryan. This is the Business Easy Podcast. We have been inundated with so much information with you, and I thank you so much. And please do come back.
Definitely. Thank you for having me.